As I mentioned, the Bank of England could raise UK rates today. At least they have their big rate-setting meeting this morning. Of course, there's no expectation they will do that. But interestingly, from time to time, we follow the thoughts of a so-called shadow monetary policy committee, which meets in the northeast. A number of business people up there who look at their own economy and decide what they would do if they were the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And interestingly, this time, the members of that committee seem to be moving towards a majority supporting a rise in UK interest rates. There were 8 attendees this time, and 4 of them voted for a rise. Well, let's have a word with the chair of that committee. He's also finance director at the Darlington Building Society, Christopher White. And very good morning to you, Christopher.
Morning, Nigel.
So, were you surprised that your vote was tied? I mean, we're getting pretty close to sentiment getting ready for a rate rise here too.
I don't think it came as a complete surprise. I guess we've, as a committee, seen some opinions within our membership that there should be a rise for a little while, and I think that mood has been changing. I think we look back in time to kind of the Q4 of 2016, and people were talking a lot about the uncertainty following the EU referendum, and I think as we've moved into 2017, there's been a lot of recognition that some of the more negative views of what would happen to the economy following the referendum haven't come to pass. And I think that it was interesting in this meeting to really kind of feel kind of a larger swing in that mood around the membership, that there's maybe a little bit more recognition that I guess the majority of views within economists that there would be a more negative impact following Brexit isn't happening.
I would imagine, as finance director of the Darlington Building Society, you were a bit conflicted because on the one hand your savers are desperate for higher returns, whereas your mortgage payers wouldn't want to see a rise. In fact, because rates have been so static for a long time, it will come as a bit of a shock.
Yes, there's certainly a conflict there, and we do want to see the best for our members, both savers and borrowers.
So which way did you vote then, Christopher?
I did vote for an increase, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, talking about our membership, I think that if you look at mortgages at the moment, we're in a period where if you're looking to move house or move on to the housing ladder, as it were, it is one of the best times in recent times to be able to do that with record low mortgage rates. On the other hand, as a saver, we've seen a very long period of very low returns for that people, and I guess when we look at our membership, we think of maybe some of the older savers where the return on their savings is very important to them, and I think we'd like to see that an increase in the return for those members. I think more widely looking at the economy, and again we talked as a committee about this, about the fact that we have seen more resilience displayed by our economy following the EU vote than maybe a lot expected. So we have seen some impact as a result of Brexit, but we haven't seen the recessions and the GDP slumps and things that the people were talking about. I think we talked around the fact that can we sit here at Q1 2017 and talk about the fact that uncertainty or the potential for those negative economic impacts has gone? No, but by the same merit, can we sit and wait and think that it's always just around the corner that will happen?
We were talking a bit earlier on the programme to the publishers of a London employment study, and they were showing that there has been quite a fall-off in the number of new jobs being advertised, or indeed people wanting to risk moving jobs. And I see to some degree that is reflected in your region in the North East. Your head of policy for the North East England Chamber of Commerce is saying there's slight concern about people being offered temporary rather than permanent jobs.
Yeah, we've got a couple of our members that have they're involved in kind of the employment sector, I guess, and like you say, our representative from the NECC. I guess most of the concern I think that was being highlighted there was maybe a shift towards temporary rather than permanent employment, and I think that what we were highlighting there was that there was some concern that there was maybe early signs of that. I think that reflects the fact that as we said, there's a lot of uncertainty, and the businesses are maybe less willing to make the investment in a permanent employee than they previously had. I think we're well aware of the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty around. I guess does that mean that the economy is about to make a negative turn? Is difficult to see from that one metric.
Of course, you're a pretty export-orientated economy there, aren't you? So you are Brexit prone, or rather, there are potential risks for your economy.
Yes, there are certainly risks there. I mean, I think that we are a very heavily export area of the country. We have, I guess, some larger manufacturing firms that are obviously very involved in that, and of course automotive as well. And there's been a lot of positive out of the changes in the FX as a result of that for some of them as well, but there is certainly risk as well. But again, I think I come back to the point there that some of the negative impacts that were maybe expected around that we haven't seen as well. I think another thing that we talked about in the committee that's interesting is some of the comparisons to the US economy, and I know that you were talking about this just before I came on as well, and I think that some of the comparisons there of the fact that they're seeing employment improvement and rising inflation, but nonetheless are maybe being a little bit more hawkish about their rate decisions, I think makes an interesting comparison. And I think some of the reasons that are given for us not moving interest rates at the moment around uncertainty also makes an interesting comparison, because I don't think you can look at America at the moment and say that that's an area of the world that doesn't face uncertainty. So.
Absolutely, and obviously they've got the wild card of Donald Trump in the presidency. I suppose, you mentioned reasons for raising rates. Probably the reason the bank is holding off is because it is expecting growth to slow down and higher inflation to squeeze people's spending. Do you have any sense of a squeeze on consumers, on your customers there at the Darlington?
I guess we haven't, kind of from what we look at, seen any signs of changing consumer patterns. Obviously, it is one of the metrics that's really been quite resilient following the EU referendum, and that consumer spending has stayed very strong. I think there's some interesting data out there about how that consumer spending is backed, and I think that there's some concern clearly around it being quite heavily debt funded, and I think that what we need to see to obviously move ourselves out of that is stronger wage inflation in our future, and I think that would clearly help in that area.
But we're not seeing that, are we? I mean, if anything, pay rises have been slowing in some areas.
No, agreed, and I think that is an area that would obviously be nice to see improving, because it would start to help turn that corner, I guess, on the consumer. I guess backing the consumer spending through something other than debt.
OK, well, thanks very much indeed for coming on this morning. Always good to talk to you, Christopher White. He's Finance Director at the Darlington Building Society, and he chairs that North East Shadow Monetary Policy Committee, which had a dead heat with half of the members voting for a UK rate rise. The real committee released its latest interest rate decision here in London at 12 o'clock, and the Bank of England is, likely to hold rates at 0.25%. 17 minutes to 9.
Share Radio.